This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
What's up, everybody? This is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Press Row, where we talk about the biggest issues in sports with the analysts, experts, and reporters who cover them. No nonsense, hard-hitting interviews on the sports topics you're talking about. A new show comes out every single Thursday. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Press Row. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
The road to the USL League One playoffs goes through Madison, Wisconsin. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Baxter Colburn, your host of Let Me Be Forward. Thank you for listening. Today is a very special episode, and it is also our final episode. I know I'm just as sad as you are, but I appreciate the continued support and outreach from many of you on social media, the emails, the texts, everything. It truly has been an honor and a blessing to be a part of this inaugural Forward Madison FC season. I know my co-host Madeline Kumm shares that thought as well. We've got a great one in store for you as we get into the nitty-gritty of these last couple of games left in the season. We have, of course, a conversation with our good friend Daryl Shore. We have no player interviews this week, though, but that's because we're doing some different and exciting things. We also are going to be joined. Madeline Kumm has a chance to sit down with the lifestyle TV show host of Midday Madison on WKOW, Samantha Bowers. She is here this week as well. Samantha talks about what it has been like for those that work in the Madison media industry to just embrace what Forward Madison has done this season. It's been a wild ride, and Samantha and Maddie sit down. They talk about that and a lot of other fun things. Then, later on in the program, Maddie and I reveal our top 10 moments from the 2019 Forward Madison season and the Let Me Be Forward season, I guess, as it were. So Maddie and I will be together to discuss all of that a little bit later on in the show. If you want to interact with the show, we are on social media at Let Me Be Forward, at Baxter Colburn, and at Maddie Kumm. We are also presented by Public House Media. You can find them over at publichousemedia.org. They turn 2 years old today, actually, so happy birthday, happy anniversary to PHM today as well. That is on our final episode. With all that being said, let's dive in, folks. News and notes from around the soccer world. Let's hit it. All right, here's what we got for you from the following past weekend of games for you in USL League One. The rundown of matches and results are as follows. Lansing gets a 2-1 victory over Orlando. That now gives them 36 points on the season. Good enough for second place in USL League One. North Texas gets a big win over Chattanooga. That helps us as Forward Madison fans. They beat them 2-0. Forward Madison and Greenville, a 0-0 draw, of course. Then you look at Richmond. They get a 2-2 draw with Toronto FC. That was a surprise, in my opinion. Richmond has been a little bit more chippy these last few games. Maybe a last season push. I hope not if you're Forward Madison fans. But Richmond trying to put it together. And then Tormenta and FC Tucson get a 1-1 draw at the final match of the weekend. Standings, the top six is all we care about right now. Forward Madison 4 points ahead of the next team below them, so we're just looking at the top six right now. North Texas in first at 38, Lansing in second at 36, Tormenta and Chattanooga in third and fourth respectively, but with 31 points apiece. Greenville 1 point above Forward Madison, 30 points for them. And Forward Madison in sixth place with 29 points. One victory will shake things up, and it could be quite interesting, if you ask me. These next three matches at home against Richmond, Greenville, and Tormenta. 9 points. Can you get there? I think they can. Let's be honest with you. All right, other news and notes. What else we got here? Oh, yeah, Coutinho, a little player there. Philip Coutinho has gone on loan from Barcelona to, Bayern Munich. Well, that's interesting. And here we thought there was going to be a Neymar deal in some of this somehow, some way. But no, that is not the case. We talked about that last week. But instead, Philip Coutinho has gone on loan to Bayern Munich. So good for Bayern Munich. That went from amazing to extra super duper awesome amazing with another amazing player added in. My bet is already down that Bayern Munich is going to win the Bundesliga again and watch for a deep run in the Champions League as well. Final piece of news for you from the soccer world. You may have heard MLS is headed to St. Louis in 2022. They are now the 28th team to join Major League Soccer. You've got the likes of you've got Miami joining next year, and you've also got Austin joining, and I'm spacing on the last one, of course. Nashville. There we go. Nashville is the other team, and now St. Louis to join also. Sacramento, maybe they'll get in a team at some point. I know the league wants to expand to 30, 32, 47. Who knows? Why are we putting so many teams in Major League Soccer? Until promotion relegation jumps in at some point, like an MLS League 1 and 2, we'll see. But USL is also doing a great job of kind of putting pressure on them as well. That's the big news we've got for you in the soccer world. It's time now for our first interview. Madeline Kumm and Samantha Bowers are here to chat about all things Forward Madison inside the city of Madison from the media's perspective point of view. Samantha and Maddie, take it away, ladies.
Hey Baxter, I'm here with Sam, who also covers Forward Madison FC on her show Midday Madison in a segment called Players Corner. So we're going to sit down and offer a different perspective about women in journalism, how she feels about covering the team, getting to know them, what she wants to portray when she puts her segments on Midday Madison, and maybe some fun other topics that we'll cover. But first of all, Sam, tell me how you got involved with Forward Madison FC, and you actually just recently moved to the area a few months ago, so tell us about that.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm so excited. I love your podcast, so I'm honored to be a guest. But I got involved with Forward Madison when I launched the show on July 1st. We launched it at WKOW, and I moved up here for this job. So I'm actually originally from Kansas City, and I graduated college from Mizzou with a degree in journalism. And I knew I wanted to do some type of a lifestyle show, so Midday Madison was the perfect fit for me. And when I got up here, the station kept saying that I should talk to the Mallards and talk to Forward Madison. And so that's kind of how Players Corner came about. I started doing interviews with a couple of the players at Forward Madison. And then from there, it kind of branded itself as Players Corner because I really wanted to focus more so on not necessarily what was related to soccer, but getting to know the guys off the field. Because at least for the Midday Madison viewers, it's more so that fun lifestyle content that people can relate to. And so I would ask them questions like, tell me your favorite joke, or if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? And so really those more like quirky questions that you really make them think, and it really shows their personality. And that's kind of what I was hoping to portray with Players Corner.
So when you're meeting players, how do you get them to open up? Because some people are really excited to do interviews and they want to share their personalities with you, and some people are really camera shy. They don't know you very well and they feel really uncomfortable. So how do you maybe film or host a segment when somebody's uncomfortable? How do you get them out of their shell?
So that definitely is a thing. A lot of times whenever I have guests on the show, not necessarily even just with Forward Madison, but I would also do this with Forward, it helps to kind of talk to them off camera first for a little bit and kind of warm them up, get them to feel comfortable about you. But also one thing that really helps is do some type of social media video with them before. So it's kind of like a practice run on Instagram. So like if you were to do an Instagram live with, say, a Forward player, they're going to feel more comfortable going into the camera interview because it's like they've already done it on Instagram. So it's kind of like a warm-up, but it's a great way to help them build trust in you, even though you just met them, but then also just make them feel more comfortable and warmed up in front of the camera.
And then before you started with Midday Madison, did you ever do any sort of sports coverage or player interviews before Midday Madison?
Yeah, so I worked at KOMU as a sports anchor for a while, so I was never out doing player interviews, but I was anchoring at the desk. So I would cover, like highlights and then any sports stories that were relevant on Friday nights. And so that kind of gave me a better perspective about sports journalism as a whole and how it comes together. So that is my background in sports. I will say I did want to go more so into lifestyle, but I've always loved sports. And so I wanted to kind of incorporate that into Midday, and that's where Players Corner comes into play.
Right. So going off of that, with women in journalism, especially, maybe not even lifestyle, but more in the sports kaleidoscope, if you want to put it that way, how do you think women gain credibility? Because I do think, and like I said, I like doing segments on the podcast where I think you get to see people's personality, because I think sports is all about emotion. I think it's people win together, they lose together, they go for the emotion, but I think a lot of people think that women ask like maybe fluff questions or maybe more like the hot seat style and questions, which I like doing. But how do you think that we have to sort of drive that perspective that women should be respected and that they should really have a voice in sports and that their voice matters?
So I will say that the segments that I do are mainly hot seat style. And I think it's known from the get-go that my interview is not going to be hard-hitting, and my interview is not going to be like anything about soccer necessarily even. And so I think that when they understand that this is what I'm going for, I just want to be fun and have like a fun interview and show your personality, that they respect that and they know going into the interview that this isn't going to be anything like hard hitting. But kind of going back to women in journalism, I think that especially when it comes to sports, it is hard. I mean, like, you walk into a room where everyone else covering the sport is a guy, and it may be hard for them to see that you actually understand the sport or that you've even played the sport. Like, I played soccer, but it's like a lot of people don't really think that you understand the game or that you have any idea how it works or anything like that just because you're a woman and maybe just because of your appearance even. And I think that that's sad. I know that we're making strides, and we have like Erin Andrews and Sam Ponder and amazing sports reporters who are women to look up to, but I still think we have a long ways to go when it comes to being taken seriously, especially. And I think that the one way that we can combat that is just to be confident and to pursue what we're passionate about. So like if you're a woman and you are passionate about sports journalism, don't take no for an answer and don't back down just because you feel like guys aren't taking you seriously. Like, if you know your stuff, and you need to be confident in that.
And going off of that, what do you think is the line between professional and maybe overstepping boundaries? I think women experience this not only when they work in sports, but especially when they work in sports. What if, players are maybe reaching out to you, DMing you? How do you build that foundation of respect first and foremost? And what do you do if maybe that happens regardless? As if, you maybe made that line, but they're still pretty persistent.
Yeah, so, I mean, this has happened to me. I'll just be honest.
Let's talk about it.
We've talked about it, and I think that for me, I'm not covering my lifestyle show is not even necessarily journalism in a sense. It's more just a show. It's very entertainment based. I think that if you're a sports reporter and you're, covering facts and you are abiding by those, then it needs to be a professional relationship, and it's something that you have to take as you're a journalist and you're interviewing your source and everything like that. And so I will say that, yeah, I've had, players slide in my DMs and everything like that. And it's to the point where it's just like, you do have to keep it professional in a sense, but it's okay to have friendships. It's okay to, go out and do things with them as long as you're keeping it professional and not crossing that line. Was that good? Because I definitely think it's important to draw that line, because like I do have friends that I've interviewed before and it's like we're just friends. But it's like if someone's persistently contacting you and like sliding into DMs and like being so persistent and I'm not responding, it's like it's because I feel uncomfortable. There's a reason that I'm not responding. It's because I'm trying to keep this as a professional relationship, and I feel like responding would give the wrong idea.
Well, and that's the thing too, like we've talked about this and like I don't know what we should say. I mean, we've both gotten DMs from players, but it's one of those things too where it's like it's great to have those friendships, but at the same time it's almost like, are you taking this seriously? Like, do you know what I mean? Like you're
like,
interviewing
why are
them.
You DMing, it's like almost like, why are you DMing me? Like, what do you like? I'm doing my job, and you're doing your job. Right. So, like, don't make this uncomfortable for when I have to come back and interview you guys again. You know?
And
like,
it's one of those things, too, if you think about it, roles reversed, if this was a women's team and a guy would, would we be sliding into their DMs?
Yeah.
It's even, like, in other professional organizations, like NFL, if you're a cheerleader, you're not allowed to follow any of the players.
And they take that very, very seriously.
They'll kick you off.
That. Yeah.
If you walk into a bar and or if you're already there and a player walks in, you have to leave no matter what, even if you were there first, whatever. And I think that's a huge issue right now, even in like the NFL. I knew a girl who was a Saint Station. One of my friends I met in New York, actually, and she got kicked off the team because of something like that. So I think, like you said, we are making strides, but there are so many setbacks. But then in situations like this, there's such a gray area where it's like, okay, do you almost tarnish a relationship maybe by blowing them off, not responding, turning them down? Do you overstep boundaries by hanging out with them? Or, how do you really go about that? Because they are kind of putting you in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, and I mean, especially like with that Saint Station situation, it's almost like, well, she knows, like, the rules that have been laid out, like, if she contacts this player or, like, hangs out with this player, then she's going to be fired. She almost has to choose, like, does she want the job or does she want the guy?
Right.
And, like, if she feels so strongly that she wants to date this guy, then by all means, whatever. Like,
but
she
if a
can
player
do that,
DMs you could get kicked off.
Even if she didn't respond.
Yeah, I think so.
Then, see, that's just, like... That's, like, something that she can't even control. And I guess in that situation, if she was, like, not wanting to talk to him and, like, did not want to, like, lose her job because she knows she can't talk to him, then she needs to obviously, like, report it almost. But then it's, like, you're right. It's, like, you don't want to be that person. But then it's almost
like, why is that rule even in place? Like, why would she have to leave? Why is that fair to her? Yeah. If someone's pursuing her, like,
she can't do anything
that.
about it.
No, exactly. So, like you said, we are making strides, but at the same time, there are so many rules left in place that...
And I think especially with, like, social media, like, Instagram DMs were not a thing a couple of years ago. Or, like, even, like, any type of social media or technology, texting, FaceTime, anything like that was not a thing. So, like, unless they saw you out, they were not going to have a way to contact you. So, it's just... Yeah, it's a lot of gray areas, I guess, is what we're dealing with.
And it's such a touchy situation on how to play it. Like I said, do you not respond? Do you respond? Do you give, like, a very neutral message? Do you ignore and pretend like you didn't see it?
So for me, sometimes I will respond and just be friendly because, like, I want to be friends. Sometimes I won't respond. Sometimes I won't even open it. It's just, it depends. And it's based on, what the message was and, like, how comfortable I feel with that situation, I guess.
Right. No, I agree. I just think it's kind of an interesting perspective because, again, women in media, I think that they do face a lot of different obstacles than men, or people might say that we're all climbing the same mountain, but women have to climb a completely different side.
Yep.
With a lot different sort of terrain.
With a lot of different, like, rocks and bumps and turns and curves.
Exactly.
And,
so I always think it's important to get that sort of perspective, especially when it is a male-dominated team, and there are, women involved with media or interviewing, and just not even with Forward, but just in general, because I think it's something that people don't talk about, and I think they're afraid to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because it's something that is still kind of confusing, too, like we mentioned the gray area, and it's up and coming, and nobody really knows how to handle it, and then we're still making strides in that area as well, so.
Right. No, I totally agree, and I really appreciate your input and your opinion on this. But tell everybody who's listening where they can find you, how they can find Midday Madison, how they can find your Players Corner segments.
Yeah, so Midday Madison is at 11:15 Monday through Friday on WKOW. It's also online at WKOW.com under the Midday Madison tab. And then I'm everywhere on social media, but Instagram is my favorite. So I am just at Samantha Bowers.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, offering your unique perspective.
Anytime.
Everybody go watch her segments to find out even more about your beloved Forward Madison players. Back to you, Baxter.
Time now for our weekly conversation with Forward Madison head coach Daryl Shore. The final time this season we get the chance to speak with the man in charge, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have any fun like we always do. We always enjoy our conversations. And, of course, for the final time, it is my pleasure to introduce Coach Daryl Shore. Coach, good day to you, sir. How are you?
Baxter, I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Enjoying the beautiful summer weather while we still have it.
It's quite enjoyable out, actually. It is.
Yeah, I'll definitely take this over snow in the middle of almost spring, so glad to be here. But let's talk about the exciting action. You were just out east fighting Greenville, and you come back with a 0-0 draw. But a point on the road is still helpful, especially with the playoffs very close, and the point differential for what you need to do to get into the playoffs now even closer, especially with getting a draw. So tell me about that game. Some big saves from Brian Silvestri in this game, but what was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're pleased to come out of there with a point. Brian obviously makes a huge save in the first half that keeps us in the game. We were a little backed up in the first half, and we're a little too deep defensively. But at the same time, we still had a goal that we're still trying to figure out why it was called back. And, we defended well. And so now we got into halftime and figured a couple things out and brought our guys out a little bit more, played a little higher line, which we were successful with. Obviously, they scored the goal that was called back also. And then probably the next best chances came from our end with Giro's shot that he had that the keeper made a good save on, and then JC hits the crossbar, and then Giro had another really good chance. So overall, with the way we started the game, felt like 0-0 was probably a fair result. Felt a little hard done by, but at the same time, again, those things all come in full circle, and was pleased with the way our guys stuck with the game and grinded it out. And at the end of the day, you go on the road and you don't give up goals, you're going to have a chance to get points, whether it's 1 or 3. So we were, the hottest team in the league we were playing against, so we were pleased to get out of there 0-0.
Absolutely. And, I know we've talked about this briefly in the past, and obviously I know there's only so much you can say because I know you like your job, but have you seen an increase or decrease in correct officiating so far this season, or how can you nicely answer that? Because I know it's been a hot topic, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard. I mean, the refereeing is hard, and they are on the spot, and unfortunately, they don't have in our league VAR, because I think if they have VAR, then our goal would have been proven to be a good goal. But it's frustrating for sure, but it's frustrating for everyone. And so until we figure out how to help referees get better and make the game better, we're all going to be frustrated. But at the same time, it's like I've always said, refereeing is not easy. It's a hard job. And at the end of the day, you just hope that it all comes back full circle. And so disappointed with obviously some of the decisions, but I think if you ask the Greenville team, they probably would say the same thing on their end. So as long as it's consistent for both groups, then really the complaining is not it's going to fall on deaf ears. It's when it gets one-sided that you start to worry about it.
Exactly right, and I think that's one of the things that we've seen every fan base and every team complain about this year has been the officiating. So it hasn't been, why are they getting the calls and why aren't we? So as you mentioned, it's been consistent, but obviously it's not been consistent in the way that you want it to be. However, the nice part about it, though, as you mentioned, you still go on the road, you don't allow a goal, you do get a point, you're 1 point behind Greenville, you're 2 points out of the playoffs with Chattanooga and Toronto right above you guys. This is interesting because you now have 3 games at home, which I think many teams in your position would kill for in that type of position. What is your mentality? I know it's one game at a time. You have 9 total points, and that would be obviously massive if you go and grab even 6 of those 9. But you play Richmond and Greenville again. Is it going to be the same similar lineup we're going to see? What tweaks are you going to make now that you've seen these teams?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, it's Chattanooga and Tormenta. You said Toronto.
Oh, I apologize.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for, is to help you out a little bit.
Thank you.
Listen, it's 3 home games. It's 9 points. But what we said to the team even today is we can't get 9 points if we don't get 3 points in the Richmond game. So
exactly.
Our focus is nowhere near thinking about Greenville and or Tormenta, our following 2 games. Our focus right now is on Richmond. We felt like we let ourselves down the last time we played them. They came in with a good game plan, which we discussed, but at the same time, we know we could have been better and we should have gotten a better result out of the game, whether it was a tie or a win. So, the win would have been hard, like we talked about last week, because 11 shots, none on goal. It's hard to win a game when you don't put shots on goal.
Right.
That being said, our focus this week is purely on Richmond. And as far as the lineup goes, as we do every week, we've got to assess where guys are health-wise and where we are, not just physically but mentally. So, will there be changes? Tough to change a group that just went and didn't give up a goal. But at the same time, when you don't score goals, you have to start looking. Our last 2 games, we have 0 goals, so we have to look at that part of it too. But again, it's a sole focus on Richmond. How do we get 3 points, and how do we keep improving as we make this push to get into the playoffs?
One of the things that I've noticed also is the continued involvement of guys like Oliver White and Louis Bennett, your 2 loanies. I know it's a different situation than what you've got with Minnesota United, but give me your perspective. Those 2 gentlemen, I feel like I've seen, especially Oliver, have been far more involved in the offense. Obviously, they're there full time right now, which is great, but how has their addition to the team now a couple weeks out? How has that been?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason we brought them in was because we felt like they could help our group. And so now, when they come in, obviously they come in from the USL Championship, which doesn't mean that they're 100% ahead of guys, but they've meshed into our group well. They're bought into what we're trying to do as a team. And right now, it's about who's in the best form at the right time. And so when you look at our forward group, you can sit there and ask, is Oliver in the best form of our group of attacking players? And you could argue some yes, some no, but it's just what we see every day in training and what we feel gives our group our best chance to win. And then Louis, what he brings is he's another guy that is a soccer player. And so the way we try to play, where we try to keep possession and play attacking soccer in our opponent's half, it's good to know that we can bring someone like Louis into the game and he can keep us going in the right direction. And then the other thing that we still haven't seen yet from him that hopefully is coming soon is he's very, very good on set pieces. And so now we've got to get him integrated and into parts of the game where now if we have set pieces, if he's in the game, people will see how dangerous he is on those plays.
One of the things that I want to shift away from here fast and get your opinion on something, you probably saw that St. Louis was awarded an MLS franchise. I know you spent time in MLS as well for a couple of years. What is your respective thoughts about this? Because I know the soccer community was saying, well, it's about time, but from your perspective as one that's been in and around it, St. Louis being awarded the next MLS franchise, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you talk to people, when you talk about the history of soccer and where soccer has been in our country, you're remiss if you don't talk about St. Louis and St. Louis soccer. So there were times where people would say in the old MLS, well, we need a team in St. Louis. Well, I think what's become evident in MLS now is if you can prove that you've got a quality ownership group and you can bring fans to the stadium, then you'll get a team. Mm-hmm. And so now I think St. Louis has bided their time. I do think it's people may not agree with me, or maybe they will agree. I think it helps that the Rams left town.
Yes.
Because now when you talk about St. Louis, obviously you've got the Blues, who just won the Stanley Cup. You've got the Cardinals, which are rich in history. But now the third major sports team in that market is going to be MLS. So you talk about the gateway to the West and all that stuff. So I think it was a long time coming for St. Louis. It gives now a great rivalry between Kansas City, St. Louis, and Chicago. Mm-hmm. So you have a three-way rivalry there that's already, a blueprint probably that's going to be made. But I think now that you can add a few teams in the Midwest after you've added East Coast and West Coast, I think it's great. And I just hope that the fans of St. Louis get behind it and support it. I know, St. Louis University has a great following. And I also know that, St. Louis FC has done a pretty good job recently with their group. So I think it's great. I think anytime you can add another team with quality ownership group and now, this one, even I was watching a little bit of today, you look at the ownership group, and now it's the majority ownership group are female. So in today's day and age, I think that even more says leaps and bounds about what's going on, not just in Major League Soccer, but in our sport. And so if you can have that, and now you can have an ownership group of this quality, then all you can hope for now is that St. Louis succeeds. And you look at Cincinnati, you look at Atlanta, you look at LAFC, who are the teams that are newest to the league, and you look at their stadiums and they're packed. So that's great, and it's only going to get better for our sport.
Exactly right. And I think you touched on that, too, with the new female ownerships. It's good to see, even just after the Women's World Cup, that there's more, even involvement in the NWSL as well. So soccer as a whole is only continuing to grow, and St. Louis is going to jump into that piece of history to see what they can do. One of the last things I want to ask you as well, Coach, before we let you go, does stem back to what Madison is doing now. We look at the next couple of matches. You look at even some of the results from the weekend as well. My biggest thing here for you moving forward is, have you seen enough from the grouping of players that you have, especially in the goalkeeping spot with Dane, and now you've got Brian, of course. Do you feel confident that Brian's going to be the guy now moving forward for you, at least for the next couple matches?
Yeah. I mean, Brian Sylvester is our goalkeeper. And we talked about early in the year, we had Ryan Coulter and Brian Sylvester, who we thought are two quality goalkeepers. And now we have a guy like Dane St. Clair who can come to us on loan, again, another quality goalkeeper. So we knew at some point we needed to get Dane 5 games. And that makes him now eligible for the playoffs in case something were to happen either to Brian or Ryan. So we felt like it was important to get Dane those games. And again, when you're talking about working with your MLS club and trying to figure it out, it's all about scheduling. So, but I think, from day one of the show and from day one of the season, we had always told people that Brian Sylvester is our starting goalkeeper and Ryan Coulter is our backup goalkeeper and our goalkeeper coach.
Yes.
We just got a bonus when Ryan was asked to step into the goal early in the year, that he was in good form and played really well. That we have, again, I've said this all along, we have 2 number 1 goalkeepers on our roster. And now when Dane is down here, we have 3. And I don't think there's a team in any league in this country that can sit there and say we're comfortable with any 3 of our goalkeepers.
Yes.
That if they have to start. And then, when I talk about those 3, nobody's seen Brandon Barnes play in a game yet. But
right.
He's another one who is young and is up and coming, but Ryan has done such a good job with him in training and everything that Brandon has really pushed the envelope as well, to where we feel like he's another guy that if we had to put him in a game, we wouldn't be disappointed and we wouldn't be afraid to put him in games. So the quality of goalkeepers that we have, I think is tremendous. I think a lot of that credit goes to Ryan Coulter for, 1, being our goalkeeper coach, but 2, being able to handle not just being a goalkeeper, but being our coach. And so a lot of credit has to go to him for the job that he's done working with all of the goalkeepers, all while keeping himself fit and sharp and ready to go. So I think a lot of credit goes to him, and a lot of credit goes to our goalkeeper group of getting after it when they're training.
Well, I think that's probably the best way to wrap this interview up, Coach. I appreciate the transparency. And, that was kind of, I think, the thought you and I had throughout the season with Brian, obviously. But it's good to see that it's all coming together, of course, and still a lot of excitement still for the remaining games. But I just want to say thank you to you, because I've had a ton of fun this entire season getting to know you better and getting to just have these fun conversations, push the envelope a couple of times with you. And I just appreciate your honesty and your transparency through all of this. So I appreciate the opportunity, sir.
Well, Baxter, I just want to say thank you as well for having me on the show. And I think it was a special time for us to be able to bring these kind of conversations to our fans. And I know that the show is signing off, but just know that we're fans of what you do and what you brought to our club, and we wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully we'll see you at more games. And to our fans, let's keep this thing going. We've got 7 games left in our season, and we like to call it 9 games left in our season, because we're going to do everything we can to get into the playoffs. And once we do that, we're going to give it all our damnedest try to get a final and hopefully even host a final in Madison.
Game on, Coach. I love it. Thank you for the time, sir, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
All right, Baxter. Thanks a lot.
Time now for the Loon Report, your weekly look inside Forward Madison partner club, Minnesota United. The Loons grappled with the Lions this past week and fought to a 1-1 draw, and it came in the 92nd minute as Dunladi scored a game-tying goal to save a very valuable point after Nani converted from the penalty spot in the 70th minute. That win keeps Minnesota United in second place in the Western Conference with 42 points. The team right above them, LAFC, have already claimed a playoff spot, but that doesn't mean that the Loons can't find themselves in a top 2 or 3 spot with the remaining games in hand. This was a great game for Minnesota United. They've got a lot of positivity going forward, plus some of those Forward Madison players that are over there on loan, like Carter Manley and some others, really stepping up in these last few games. Mason Toy as well. The next game for the Minnesota United Loons is Thursday, August 22nd, as they take on Sporting Kansas City. Another Western Conference battle. I have the Loons winning 2-1 in that game. That's the final edition of the Loon Report, your weekly look inside Forward Madison Partner Club, Minnesota United. All right, as we wrap up the show, we've got some exciting things. I teased this at the beginning of the show that Maddie and I were going to share our top 10 moments from this season, not only from Forward Madison's perspective, but also from the show as a whole. We've gone through a lot of different things. We've seen some pretty crazy things. We've had some fun. It's kind of been all over the place, but this is one of the first times that you and I, Maddie, have actually been on the show at the exact same time together. It doesn't happen.
Excited.
Doesn't happen as often as it should, but I'm grateful that we get to kind of close this thing out together. So how are we doing today, Maddie?
I'm good. Like I said, I'm really excited to do this segment with you. Like you said, we don't really have, the time that we wish we had together on this show, but I'm glad for our last one we could hopefully hit it out of the park and talk about our favorite moments and some interesting moments as well.
It's true. And we did ask the question on Twitter as well. For those that have responded, we did ask the question, what have been your favorite moments? We'll get to those answers in just a little bit. And then Maddie and I will kind of offer our final thoughts after we give our top 10 list here. So these are in no particular order. We want to clarify that. So Maddie, I'll let you go. We do have 2 honorable mentions. Should we hit those before we actually get into the actual content?
Yep, let's hit those.
Okay, so the 2 honorable mentions in our top 10 was the banter all season, especially that we started on our show between Eric Leonard and Ryan Coulter. I think the banter about, Eric Leonard's hair and the fact that Ryan Coulter's never had practice and he's always at the golf course or traveling around the country, it feels like, with his wife. That was a pretty funny and memorable thing that we kind of saw them jump onto throughout the season.
That was really fun. We got a tweet about that today, and I really enjoyed that. Definitely doing that Ask Me Anything / Hot Seat segment was probably one of my favorite things, especially seeing everybody blow up our Twitter. I just remember looking at my phone and seeing like 30 notifications. And Eric and Ryan were going back and forth. I know Swag Like Beeman was chiming in there for a little bit. So seeing everybody kind of hop on that wagon was pretty funny.
It was, yeah. And I think that was kind of cool just to kind of showcase the personalities of the players. I think was pretty fun. In my opinion. So it's cool to see when it can be done in a fun, but also, humoristic and jabby sort of fun way as well.
Right. And a lot of those comments are still circulating. I know people I see on Twitter, people are still making fun of Eric's hair. So
what hair? There is no hair.
Sorry, Eric.
I know. I'm sorry. One of the other ones that I want to talk about is an honorable mention that I've owned up to this. So, is the amount of, is it eating crow? You've eaten a lot of humble pie and crow with Mason Toy. So I was insanely critical of him when he was with Forward Madison. And then he left and went back to Minnesota United and decided to score numerous goals in the U.S. Open Cup, in MLS, and he's now a nationally known and internationally known figure now because of his success. And it's been kind of funny because, I was a couple of months ago criticizing, saying he's awful, he doesn't play good at forward, he can't score goals, he's not doing anything for Forward Madison. And then he starts popping up in Minnesota games and is like, oh, really interesting. So whether or not he ever heard a single word I ever said, who knows? But I enjoyed being called out and being wrong by your play, Mason. So thank you for doing that.
Right.
But it's good to see, though, because he's been a big part of Minnesota United's success as they fight for one of those top 3 or 4 playoff spots in the Western Conference in MLS.
Right. It's always better to go up than down, right?
It's true. It's true. And it's good to see that trajectory that he was able to kind of find the confidence that he needed to move forward. So I'm proud of him.
Speaking of Baxter, let's hit on our top 10. Let's start with number 10 we have. So since you were talking about, being owned with maybe players, maybe now members of the flock, when you criticized the flock about, I believe it was cheering during penalty kicks.
Yep, the Don Smart penalty kick.
And they came for your head.
They did, yeah. And it wasn't, and I think I even prefaced the way that I said it in the show. I was like, listen, I think the support and everything is great, but in my opinion, and as a player formerly, I always wanted it to be as quiet as possible on the approach. Once the ball is kicked, you can make as much noise as you want, but as a player, you're trying to focus and you're trying to read the goalie, you're trying to do all of these different things. And Don Smart missed the penalty kick. It was a crucial penalty kick in that moment. And it would have been, I think, better if he had not been so distracted, especially with the drums and the fans and everything, because it's a very intimate setting, as you know, right behind that goal with the flock end. The fans are right there. So I still stand by my comments that I think that they need to kind of figure that out. And I know that Andrew Schmidt and others were trying to figure out and defend their actions. And I know, wasn't there other players that were even asked on the Reddit feed as well?
Yep, I read that. It was Eric Leonard and Brandon Eaton. They were talking about how they enjoy the crowd atmosphere. But I mean, I guess to each their own. It wasn't really their penalty kick, I guess, where they missed the crucial one. But
right, and Eric and Brian or Brandon are never going to really be in a position to be taking penalty kicks either. So it's easy to talk about in that situation, but I still stand by my comments.
Heat of the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I still stand by my comments, but it's all in good fun, I'm sure.
Right.
The next one is fascinating. So number 9 on our list is when players tell you that they have a good time for an interview, then they text you 10 minutes later or 10 minutes before the interview and say, sorry, I can't. My favorite moment of this, and I still laugh. I love Don Smart. He's funny. He's he's obviously very good at what he does. We were trying to get him on the show, about a month or two ago.
Right.
And it was before the El Paso game in the U.S. Open Cup. And I was like, hey, we should get Don on. And he's like, yep, I talked to him. We're set up. We're ready to go.
Yes.
And then you texted me. You were going to interview him on a Tuesday, I think.
Right, and I asked him, too, I said, which day is good? Is Tuesday okay for you? What time? And he's like, yeah, it's all good, reassuring me. And then, and this is very, behind-the-scenes things. Usually I will text a player, Sunday or Monday. We'll interview Monday or Tuesday. And 10 minutes, I think it was 10 minutes before we were supposed to interview, it was, sorry I have a game?
Yeah, you said, sorry, I can't do the interview, I have a game.
Yeah, or I
think you said I forget. No, because it was the El Paso game. He was getting ready to go to Texas, I think. And he's like, oh, sorry, I forgot I have a game or something like that.
But I've gotten that from other players, too, where it's like, sorry, I have practice. And I'm like, you did not know you had practice.
Yeah, but this was a legit game that he forgot about or just, I don't know. But because it was on a Tuesday night, I think it was, an uncharacteristic time for a game. But I laughed so hard when you sent me the text like, oh, so he forgot that they had a game. I'm like, pretty sure Daryl Shore would not let him forget that he had a game.
It's a game.
So,
maybe he was avoiding me. I don't know.
But in
maybe
general,
they're avoiding that Ask Me Anything segment.
I know. Speaking of which, that's a good segue. Tell me about this number 8.
Ooh, Ask Me Anything. So I don't know if imitation's the sincerest form of flattery, if you'd put it that way, but like I said, I had a blast doing my Ask Me Anything / hot seat segment. My very first one was with Eric Leonard, and Brandon Eaton was hiding in the bushes. And then that's how we started, the whole Ryan, Eric banter started. Then with, Spike Lightbeam and whoever else, Carl Shader jumping in. And then Forward Madison hosted one on their Reddit, and they used one of the segments about, or the comments about Eric's hair, which is from my segment.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess I'm glad that the segment's living on because I thought it was funny, but we did that, a few weeks before that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a different medium, so it's always hard to know, but,
Right.
we can say we did it first. So there's that aspect, I guess, of it, which is nice.
And like I said, it was a lot of fun. That was maybe, I think it's great with a new team getting the backgrounds of everybody and talking about season expectations and everything, but getting those personalities out of people that really do like to stir the pot a little bit, super fun. And I think that that's something maybe you get differently on a podcast because you can hear the emotion in their voice. You can hear what they're trying to get at, instead of maybe just a written medium.
That's true. It's true. Speaking of emotion and just different things that we've experienced throughout the season, I have to ask, I remember prefacing our show at the beginning of the season. I said, hey, Maddie, I was like, you're going to be around a lot of good-looking guys. You're a good-looking gal. You might get some of these players might try to, be smooth with you and, do all this stuff. And I'm just curious now, we've gone through the season. Did you ever get anybody try to slide into your DMs or try to say hey, or what do you feel comfortable sharing, I guess, with our listeners?
Well, definitely. I mean, let's be honest. I'm totally going to keep it real. We already talked about Swig Like Beeman hitting me up in the DMs. I did a segment with Sam on this episode. We actually talked about the DMs, slipping and sliding in there. But, a few players to me, a few players to her. For sure. It's one of those, we were talking about this, how it's a little bit hard because I'm fine with, being friends with people and making connections. That's great. But at the same time, I'm here to do a job and they're also doing a job. So almost, messaging me in the way where it's maybe slimy or romantic or almost degrading, I would say it shouldn't make me question my worth and my value and my job, because it's like, I'm here to interview you. I'm not here to be asked out on a date.
Exactly right. Preach it.
Exactly. But again, like I said, I love making friendships, connections. Lots of players were very respectful, and I gave that same amount of respect back to them. But it's also part of, unfortunately, working in journalism as a woman. And again, Sam and I hit on that pretty hard.
Yep.
But but again, maintaining a level of professionalism is really important to me.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of number 6 on the list, speaking
Baxter,
of that?
You are taking this one.
You're going to make me take number 6?
Oh yeah, because this was one of our very first. This is our very first game.
Correct.
Besides, this is our first. So you were in Madison at the time, which you're not in Madison very often. Sad face.
I'm not. I'm sorry. We'd hang out way more if I did.
Oh, for sure. But no, you're 2.5 hours away. Whatever. Not bitter. But talk about what happened at our first Forward Madison game. We got our credentials. We were there. It was snowing, unfortunately, but we saw people piling in. And talk about your experience. Yeah,
so one of the things that we were told ahead of time by those that operate the media guidelines is that, hey, you can have a spot up in the press box. Especially with it snowing. You had brought another correspondent with you, and I brought my wife along as well, who does some just behind-the-scenes work for the show. So the 4 of us came, and we were walking around, and obviously it was starting to get cold. So we said, let's go up in the press box so we can watch the game.
We were doing giveaways, or the raffle. We were doing some
raffling
Instagram
off the
lives,
shirt.
Facebook lives, meeting people. I think we took some pictures, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, took a bunch of pictures with different fans. We were getting people, raffle tickets for the signed shirt from the entire team for the Let Me Be Forward shirt, which is awesome. Our friend of the show, Tim, ended up winning it, so that was really cool for
that was
him.
Cool.
I was very happy for him to go home with that shirt. So we were like, okay, let's go up in the press box for a little while. So we walk up to the press box, and it was pretty cool because it was right at the beginning of the game. So everyone's all abuzz with everything that's going on. There's probably, 8 to 10 people up there running around, and there was not exactly a designated spot for us to sit and or stand. So we kind of stood awkwardly on the back wall of the press box behind the PA announcer. And,
I felt like I was in the way for sure.
Yeah, Cassie was back there running the video board, so we were kind of nestled back by where they were. And it was just very weird because you and I kind of kept looking at each other. We kind of got this sense that we weren't supposed to be in the press box.
I was waiting for us to get the verbal laughing.
Yeah, even though we had been told that we could be in the press, media could be in the press box. And like I said, this is the first time we'd ever been to Breeze as media. I've played at Breeze in college, but this is the first time as a media person being there, so we didn't know. So we were said, yep, we can be up there, but we kind of kept getting this weird vibe throughout, and then...
Right, I felt like I was in the way.
Yeah, even though we were out of the way, we still felt like we were in the way, because people were
and we were told we could
through.
Be up there, too, originally.
Yes, that's the only reason we were up there. So I'm trying to think, though, who... I don't even remember who it was that told us that we were we asked to leave, or did we decide to leave?
We were told to leave.
Yeah, we were told to leave. So somebody came up to us and approached us and said, "Hey, we don't want." It wasn't that we don't want you up here, but we don't have room. I don't honestly remember how it was officially addressed, but it was a very uncomfortable situation, and it kind of contradicted what we had previously been told about, hey, yeah, you can be up here. So then we awkwardly walked downstairs and stood underneath the press box for the remainder of for the remainder of the first half, and froze our butts off in the snow and rain. Even though we were very content staying out of the way, standing, we didn't even have to sit in the press box. We just wanted to stand.
I'm someone too that I do like to learn, and at this time we hadn't done any Green Bay Glory games yet.
Right.
But I even would have been down to help out if they needed someone to just do odds and ends. We were there to also help. I don't think it was too chaotic. I mean, they have, an announcer, someone running the video board.
Yep, a couple of social media people and stats that were all at chairs,
So it's not super crazy up there.
No.
So I felt like we could have been up there. We were, like you said, kind of shoot out.
Yes.
It is a smaller press box. I think the one in Green Bay is bigger, correct?
Yeah, comparatively Green Bay's was bigger, but at the same time, there was enough room for 4 people to stand in the back of the press box, not bothering anybody. So to be asked to leave was kind of,
a slap in the face.
Yeah, a little bit of a slap in the face, and kind of our first impression of meeting some of the people that helped run the club, in person. So that was kind of unfortunate and kind of set an awkward vibe. That was the first time we had been to Madison and been to a game, and here we were running around doing all this stuff to promote the team, and then that happened. So,
but it didn't dull our spirit, did it?
But it didn't dull our spirit. We pressed on. That was only like the 3rd episode at that point, so we pushed on from there and shot out a bunch more and had fun. So, but it was just kind of like I said, it was a lack of communication and just not properly handled, in my opinion, and I think in your opinion as well.
Right. Yep. I was a little bit upset about that.
Yeah. One thing that was a lot of fun is we got to on a positive note, we got to do a live show in Milwaukee at the Hive. Thanks to Mo Crosby and some other great support down in Milwaukee. We got to do an interview with Omar and April and Andrew. We're all there from the Flock and Labata and Mingo ladies, and it was a cool experience to get to kind of get a more inside supporters look at the team and the future of soccer. We asked about women's teams coming to the Madison area. There were so many different things that we got to touch on, and it was a lot of fun. It was 50 minutes of an aired show. And you and I obviously got to work together in person again, which was a rarity within itself. So that was really cool. My family from Florida actually came up for the event, which was really special also. But it was a cool setting, downtown Milwaukee, in a really cool and unique venue. And it was really cool to kind of take the show on the road as well.
Right. I really enjoyed that. And I think it would be even interesting if we had an opportunity to even do one again, just now that we're so familiar with the players. And before it was very, preseason based, and, like you said, team expectations, and really based on, the supporter groups, what they, it's like they were new. So like what they were excited for the season with their supporter groups and how to grow. But now, especially after I did those interviews last week and the week before with different supporter group members, kind of getting a different perspective now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you can kind of stitch the pieces together to see what this whole entire product about Forward Madison is, as opposed to just the 11 players on the field and a coach and everything else that goes along with it. It's a much bigger thing than that. Number 4, Maddie, what do you got for us?
Our podcast nomination.
Woot, woot, woot. Weeks, and this ties into number 3, and I'll get into number 3. But a couple weeks after we found out we were getting canceled, we were nominated as the best sports podcast in Wisconsin. Irony. So the irony is thick. But boy, it feels cool to be recognized. I have no idea who nominated us, but somebody did. You had to be nominated by an outside party, and somebody deemed us necessary.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you to whoever did that. Voting is still open. You can go to our Facebook page, Let Me Be Forward. I believe it's on our Twitter. You're going to have to dig through some old tweets to go find it. But we'll keep resharing it out until I believe the voting closes at the end of this month. So go. It's in
my Instagram bio.
There you go. Yeah, link in bio. And if you follow at Maddie Kumm on Instagram.
Right. No, that was pretty cool. I was kind of unaware of it at first, but then I remember seeing the graphic, and I remember the first names I see are Wilde and Tausch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And then I saw us, and it was super cool to like you said, even them and Bill Michaels, and just be a part of that.
Yeah.
Was really neat.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of positive affirmation after our cancellation was pretty nice.
It was kind of nice. Yeah, that came last week, just totally out of left field. And once I got the message that we had been nominated, I was like, wow, okay, that's really cool. So I appreciate those that have been supportive and have gone out and told us that they've voted, and we hope that more will continue to vote. It'd be really cool to actually win. I think the awards are early September, I think. So we'll keep you posted regardless of how we do. So why not?
Do they just announce that online? I'm guessing?
Yeah, I believe so. They've got an actual awards ceremony in Milwaukee. I think it's part of the Wisconsin Podcast Festival that's taking place down there.
Let's hit it up.
Yeah, let's go. Road trip. First weekend in September to my knowledge.
So just 2 weeks, basically.
I believe so. Yeah, 2, 3 weeks. So I think it's like 6, 7, 8, whatever that weekend is, for those that have a calendar by them. So that was really special and really cool. And like you said, a good affirmation of a job well done and our hard work that we've spent pouring into this show.
Yes.
Which segues to number 3. We got canceled. That's the honest truth about it. And Maddie and I have spoken about it many times, and I've been vocal with my opinions. And I'll stick. And Maddie, you can offer your thoughts too. I'm gonna stick by my statement of the announcement was disappointing. The way it was handled was disappointing, and the process overall was sad. It was a really, really bummer to hear everything that happened. But I'm a firm believer that we got to do so many great things and got to experience some really cool people because of this, and I'm forever indebted to Peter Wilt. And as you heard my interview with Daryl Shore, he had a lot of really good things to say about the show as a whole. So those relationships and everything that we were able to kindle because of that mean a lot to me. So yes, it sucks getting canceled, especially midway through the season. You don't even get to finish up the show, but a lot more positives than negatives for me. There's not a bitter feeling from my perspective of saying, wow, thanks for nothing, because truly there was a lot of really good that came out of it. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think the major problem I had with it, like you said, getting canceled, it sucks. I really wish we wouldn't have been cut off mid-season. But the thing to me that is the biggest thorn in my side is the lack of feedback. And I know we've talked about this. I'm somebody that if I'm doing something wrong, or maybe somebody wants to see something new or different, I really thrive on that feedback.
Agreed.
And I think when you reach out to people for feedback and maybe you're not getting it, or you're only hearing positive things, that's maybe why a cancellation comes out of left field. And I just wish, if there was something that I could have, it's hard for me to take things personally too. If there was something that I could have done better, I would have done everything in my power to do it.
Exactly right. And just to even add into, there are hundreds of soccer podcasts worldwide, and our show currently is ranked 143rd in the United States among all soccer podcasts, which is pretty cool. So, it's another thing where it's like, hey, there's a listenership, there's a followership, there's obviously fans, as we saw on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, the outrage of the show's announcement being canceled. So, like I said, we could go on and on about it, but at the same time, overall, very positive, but like I said, just disappointed with the way the cancellation was handled.
Yep. And yeah, that listenership there, that's something that's, cool to see as well. And like you said, it's not like, there's only, a few people listening. Even if there were, like, we would, give our all for them. But
100%.
There is a big listenership for this podcast. And like I said, you see the interaction on Twitter, especially when you do your questions on Twitter, like the banter stuff going on. People do get involved in it. And none of those analytics or anything were requested from us. So it's a little disappointing on my end. Again, that just lack of feedback, because I always want to be as best as I can, and I really appreciate that.
Amen. Amen to that one. All right. The final two, we talked about Snowmageddon briefly, but just the ridiculous nature of showing up to Madison for that first game and just getting obliterated with snow. And you joked that you look like a wet rat in all the pictures.
I did. I really tried for the first game. I was like, okay, it's, it was so nice every other day, except it was going to snow that day. But I try to do my hair, I make it whatever to look nice. And it just, my hair was soaking wet. I looked like a drowned rat, but it was freezing. We weren't in the press box. So I was just, my feet were numb. real journalism, like you said, but yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But we also talked about, that's a cool thing to bring up on the podcast, that unexpected element that maybe the other team didn't see coming.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. And oh man, it was something. It certainly was something. All right. Number one, what do you got, Maddie?
I think I caused a little bit of a storm with this.
It did.
I have to be, I can't say specifically, but number one, where's Jeff? This was a kind of a running joke. I was on my way to Green Bay to meet Baxter because we were covering the Green Bay Glory.
I had no idea.
We were covering one of those games, and I got, I think I was probably like 30 minutes outside Green Bay. I got a Twitter notification from Forward Madison with their official statement that they had released Jeff from the team mutually. So I sent it to Baxter. I sent it to you and said, "What's this about? Or what's up with this?"
And I had no clue. I was dumbfounded when I got that information. So we did some digging around and got a little bit of information, but everybody was playing their cards pretty close to their chest. So
yes,
I believe
some people.
Yeah, a couple people have told you that they might share some insight with you after the season or whatnot.
Yes.
But I'm hopeful we can get a little bit more official information. I think
the question everyone's dying to know.
I want a shirt. # Where's Jeff?
Yeah, where's Jeff?
I don't know. I think he's in Madison still.
I think he's angry with me for bringing that up.
I think so. Get over it, Jeff.
I've heard some insight, I'll say, that he's not very happy with me. But
yeah,
I mean, it's not really my fault.
It's really not. It's
not. This is what it's all about. We're here to cover the team and updates, and we knew we were going to get tweets and questions about it.
Yep, we were doing our due diligence for our fans.
Right, so I'm still holding out. I'm still holding out that I'll find out.
Exactly. Hopefully one of these days.
Investigative journalism. Dig it.
At its best. All right, we got a couple of quick ones that I want to hit on from our fans on Twitter. The Flamingo said his favorite moments of the year were hearing the player banter with each other through the interviews with Maddie Kumm, getting to know Coach Shore's thinking about the prior and upcoming games, and Baxter Colburn not holding back his constructive criticism. And finally, my first ever appearance on a podcast. # Let me be forward forever, he says. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that.
That was cute.
And then, let's see, the Forward Madison France account said, definitely Coach Shore's insights through his interviews, also Baxter's always cheerful intros. And thank you for having me on. Very grateful. Oh, appreciate that as well. And actually Mitch, seconds ago, he said, number one, the live taping in Milwaukee was a lot of fun. Oh, cool. Thanks, Mitch. 2, shining a spotlight on our fans from afar. Here's to you, Flamingos, Forward Madison, France. 3, players trash-talking each other on the air. And number 4, the opening song. Well, thanks, Mitch. That's cool. I really did like the opening song. I thought it's pretty fun.
I loved the music on the podcast.
Big fan.
I want to throw one of my favorite moments. I thought it was really funny when I think Esther tweeted us and she talked about me getting adorably starstruck by Carl Schneider.
I love that.
That was pretty funny.
Carl was pretty cool. I like Carl.
Carl's a really nice guy. No, I laugh when I think about that. I'm not starstruck. I'm not.
I know. That was funny. You remember you texted me, you're like, was I starstruck? I'm like, no, you didn't sound
I know. I'm
starstruck.
like, did I sound, borderline, bad?
Yeah. No, not
fun.
at all. All right, Maddie. Well, we need to wrap this up. So any final thoughts from you as we close the book on Let Me Be Forward?
I'm just grateful for the opportunity, honestly. I went to school for journalism. This was something that was completely new for me, and obviously a new team as well. But I'm just really happy for the opportunity, the chance I was given to cover and do player interviews. Getting to know a lot of the players was really cool. And I just wish the team the best of luck. And I look back and I'm really happy for everything that happened. Mm-hmm. Everything happens for a reason. And I'm here for the ride. I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm trying to take every lesson and opportunity and grow and learn from it. And I appreciate all the time you put into the show, because I do a segment on it every week, but you put in a lot that people don't see. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was an absolute blast getting to work with you in this capacity. So
Yes.
thank you for all of your time and efforts and countless tweets and texts that I will always remember.
Yes.
We've had a lot of fun this season. So I want to say a big thank you also to the listeners, to the fans of the show, fans of the team. I mean, without this team existing, Maddie and I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So thank you to those that brought a team to Madison. Thank you to Peter Wilch for the opportunity, to Kuba, to Daryl Shore, to all the players, everyone that had a piece in doing this. It means a lot, so thank you for the opportunity. To Public House Media, of course, you guys are the ones that made this happen as well. So I appreciate all the work and the folks that are over there as well. So, Maddie, I'm grateful for you and for this opportunity. I'm excited to see what you do next. Hopefully it's with me. And we will see what is in store for us. So thank you again for your time and efforts.
Thank you. Thanks. This has been, but maybe forward. I feel like my heart will go on should be playing right now or something.
Well, the theme song's playing underneath us right now, so I think we'll roll with that instead.
All right. Perfect. Over and out.
Absolutely. For the final time, she is Madeline Kumm. You can find her on Twitter at Maddie Kumm. I am at Baxter Colburn. The show, if you still want to chat with us, we are at Let Me Be Forward. A big thank you to Public House Media, our presenting sponsor. You can find them at publichousemedia.org. As the remainder of the season concludes, Coach Shore said in his interview, it's not 7 games, it's 9 games. They've got the playoffs. They're going for that championship. And I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think it's going to get real interesting. So let's have some fun. Enjoy the remainder of the season. Thank you once again for your support and your listenership. For the final time, I am Baxter Colburn. I'll see you next time.